Perfect. And I think our recording has started. All right, awesome. Well, welcome, y'all. And I'm so excited to have you here to our Grant Writing 101, the Fundamentals Workshop. This is a partnership between the Black Fund, Little Bit of Good, and St. David's Foundation, all working together to provide nonprofits with the capacity and resources and support that they need, not only as they apply, but beyond application for the Black Fund. We will talk about it a little bit more later into the presentation, but this is part one of a three-part series that we've put together. This is going to be the kind of general fundamentals as we start to think about and uncover new grant opportunities. So think of this as the foundational stepping stone of getting ready to write grants. How are we identifying the grants that we're applying to? What information do we have ready and organized on behalf of our organizations to get ready for applications? And then how can we be making sure that we are crafting answers that have clarity, but also show deep alignment with our funder expectations? So nothing terribly new that you'll be learning today, but always good for a refresher and clarity as we go into the grant process with the Black Fund. In the three-part series, the next workshop that we'll be doing is specifically focused on the Black Fund application and completing that application. So we'll be breaking down the Black Fund specifically. And then in part three of the series, we're actually offering in-person one-to-one application support. So I think you've all received the RSVP for that. If you are looking for any one-to-one support for your grant application, that will be an excellent event to come out to. We'll have advisors there to help you go over your grant, answer any more specific questions you have around your grant. So we've really created this series to be kind of a stepping stone, one on top of the other. I also recognize that grant writing is a very full topic and probably more than we can cover in an hour. So we will stay pretty high level on some of these topics, but we do want to make sure that you have access to a little bit of good after this. So you are more than welcome, and I'll share our information so that you can reach out and get any direct one-to-one support, or if you have any questions about the specific topics that we've covered today, we are definitely here for you beyond this workshop. So with that, we will just go over kind of expectations and overview for today. So we'll do a high-level overview of the general grant landscape, different places that we're sourcing grants from and the different types of grants. We'll then go over organization and data, and more so thinking about the different communications and outlined information that we have collected about our organization to get ready to prepare some of those grant answers. We'll talk about reading these different grant applications and RFPs and really identifying how to break them down so that you can clearly answer to the specific things they're asking for, and also in a way that shows alignment with their priorities. I will share with you a new framework, another framework, and how you can both analyze your grant applications, but also structure out your grant responses. And then we'll also go over high level, some AI kind of tips and tricks, and then some other resources that you can utilize and grant opportunities as well. This is a virtual workshop today, but if you have any questions and you want to hop off mute, please do. At any point, please ask any questions in the chat as well. I have, and if I'm looking down, I have the chat pulled up, so we'll be able to respond to any of your questions live. And then I will ask some questions as we go through the workshop, so I would love your engagement and participation as we work through as well. So first, just a quick intro of myself. So my name is Monique Parker. I am the executive director with Little Bit of Good. We are a capacity building organization that focuses on Black-led and equity-centered organizations. Capacity building is a very full word, but we support organizations in becoming sustainable and scaling their services and their programs. And we try to be specific to the Black community and extending resources and support specifically to our Black-led nonprofits. With that, we tend to partner with a lot of funders in supporting their grantees as well. So once you have the funding and capacity, how are we implementing it? Or what resources do we have to better leverage the funding that we've received? But in addition, we just want to be your biggest supporter, your biggest connector here locally. If you have any needs as a nonprofit leader, or if your organization has any needs, we'd love to talk to you. If we can't service you, we have a full and wonderful network of vetted professionals and consultants that we would be super happy to connect you with. Ultimately, our focus is on our community. And so if there's anything that we can do to further your work, we are absolutely here for y'all. With that, I would love to see who's here today. So if you could drop your name and organization in the chat, that would be wonderful. And I already see some names I know. So hello and good evening. Nika, congratulations on all your success. I love to log into LinkedIn and see your face all the time.
Thank you, sis. Love you back.
Kat Carter, Superwoman Records. Oh my gosh, I have seen some of the gals on your label perform and they are excellent. Destiny, wonderful to see you. Crystal, wonderful to see you. We still need to get lunch. Willie, great to see you. Awesome. So happy y'all are here. Get to know somebody in the chat, pick a name you don't know, and make sure you reach out to them after this workshop as well. So, moving on, just wanted to kind of quickly, for those who aren't aware, go over generally the grant landscape, the different areas that we are sourcing grants from, and some of the places where we can usually find grants as well. Generally, we see foundation grants. These are private foundation or family foundations, community foundations that create grant opportunities for nonprofits. Austin Community Foundation, Texas Hill Country Foundation, our local ones that you may know. Then we have our corporate grants, and these are grants that are going to be coming from for-profit institutions. These are your Q2 grants or Fidelity Charitable, their nonprofit arm, but usually corporate grants are coming directly from for-profit institutions going to nonprofits. We also see a lot of private-public collaboration via government-based grants. City of Austin has a lot of different grant opportunities, Elevate and Thrive, ones that we've seen recently. So those are just examples of more government-focused grants where the city or local government is subsidizing something that the community needs, but working alongside a nonprofit and funding it. And then we also have donor advised funds, which have picked up a lot here recently in popularity over the last couple of years. These are funds that are directed by individuals, usually held via financial institutions or different online platforms that help individuals looking to invest do so in a trusted way where they can also provide some feedback as to where the funds are going. So just quick overview of the different sources of grants. In terms of sourcing grants, the internet has become amazing. There are so many directories online and different resources that aggregate and scrape the internet and collect grants on a regular basis. Various ones that you can look up and find, and then also sign up to have them sent to you on a monthly or regular basis. There's also some really popular grant platforms. Instrumental is one that a lot of organizations have trialed and been using. It is a more expensive platform, but useful. We recently used GrantStation as an opportunity to source more grant opportunities. And then also just using your libraries and academic institutions as resources to source grants. A lot of the times, libraries will have foundation directories where you can go and find the contact information and direct information on foundations, more private granting. Same thing in utilizing ACC. They've become a really great partner to nonprofits as well, and a lot of the resources they offer in helping you to find funding, inclusive of grants, RSPs, sponsorships, and things like that. So definitely keep in mind our libraries and academic institutions as a supportive resource in finding more grants. Now, as we get into the workshop and the content today, I do want to understand a bit more in detail about where you're coming from in your kind of grant writing skills right now. What are, if you could drop in the chat or if you feel comfortable coming off mute, what are some of the struggles or barriers that you are experiencing right now when it comes to grant writing or grant funding in general?
I'll speak. Hello.
Yes, Tanisha.
Hi, yes. How are you?
Great. How are you?
I'm good. So, I mean, I don't necessarily know if I have any struggles, but I do know that grant writing is a very in-depth process. I worked for my family's company and I did a lot more on the acquisition and contract side, like putting together bids and things of that nature. But I didn't necessarily horn into the grant writing process. And I have my own small business where I do consulting, and grant writing is one of the services that I offer. And instead of just subcontracting it, I also would like to know, because I'm a teacher full time, I'm in education. So I would obviously want to subcontract and, because I offer a variation of services. And I just want to learn it the right way instead of just jumping in like, and just do things the right way so that I can train people. And not only that, but when I do subcontract, I know the work just as well. So I can have those conversations, make sure it's done right. Because not only do you want to apply, you want to actually get the money. So
Absolutely. And if you can build something that can be scaled through, people that you're able to train on your process, that brings so much more opportunity to what you're doing.
absolutely.
I'm seeing
No,
in
Miss
the
Imani.
chat. Hey,
Miss
Don.
Im- Hey y'all. Hey, Miss Imani.
I'm seeing lack of knowledge. Rocky, you said funder fear. Is this a fear of the funder themselves, or can you, if you don't mind, expanding on that a bit? Funder fear.
Oh, hi. Can you hear me on this thing, this
Yes.
AirPod? Oh,
Mhm.
fantastic. Yeah, right now, I would think from a socio-political standpoint, most people probably are a little afraid to touch certain themes. So there's a couple that are coming up right now that bigger funders maybe don't want to touch or they're backing off of. NIH comes to mind. Um, and so that's, I think it's from the funder side, their fear of getting into certain topics.
Absolutely. We have seen that a ton. I mean, just with the new administration in the last few months, and DEI being virtually eliminated, especially with orgs that support specific communities. I know there's been a lot of conversation around what verbiage do we use, what do we write. Funders have been, exactly as you said, kind of hesitant in partnering with these organizations. So it's been a question on both sides. We've seen it's in terms of how do we do this? Definitely something to continue to cover, and we would love to talk with you after this too, if you're having or in need of any additional support with how to restructure, based on some of the limitations that we're facing politically right now. Locating and managing the grants is something that we saw. Okay, perfect. So hopefully today then, y'all will walk away with some actionable insights and things that will help you in your grant writing initiatives. Also, just wanted to quickly cover restricted versus unrestricted grants. Restricted grants being funds that must be used for a specific purpose, program, or project that is outlined by the funder. This means if a funder says that they are funding specifically for a park renovation, then that is exactly what the funds need to be spent on. Typically, in these applications, you will be outlining very specific programs or very specific initiatives. So you're already showing how that money is going to be invested. But always good to remember restricted funds have to be spent on exactly what the funder designates they should be spent on. And typically you need to report back on that exact thing. Whereas unrestricted funds, which we love, are funds that can be used to your discretion. So these are funds that are given out, and that funder is trusting you to invest that money in a way that is going to do the best thing for your organization, whether that is to implement a new program, it's going to help you scale or sustain in any way. It's not tied to a specific thing or a specific function. These are the best grants. This is what we're trying to get funders to move closer to. The Black Fund is an unrestricted grant, which is amazing, and also something to keep in mind as you think about your Black Fund applications as well. And then just kind of quickly going over some of the key differences between both restricted and unrestricted funds. Again, restricted funds typically have a lot less flexibility in terms of what you're able to spend them on. They do tend to have a little bit more strict reporting structures when it comes to reporting back the investment impact. And then the use of funds is typically very clearly defined by the funder. On the other end, unrestricted funds, very high flexibility. You do what you need to do with that money. And typically with the reporting, it's a lot more broad. You're stating the overall impact of what that investment did for your organization, as opposed to more specific metrics, which the restricted funding would ask for. I do see a raised hand. Please feel free to pop off mute, or I think you dropped a question in here. Aya?
It's actually it's Ia Naila, but it's
I
Naila.
apologize.
That's okay. No, it's a Yoruba word, and so the vowel pronunciations are different than English. So thank you for doing this, and hey, Imani and Michelle. So I did put my question in the. Oh, I actually put two questions in, but then one was kind of answered with the slide. And then I saw I have a typo in my last question. Basically, I was asking whoever asked or put up funder fear, is that similar to Afrophobia? And the reason that I stated it like that is, so I pretty much only apply for arts or creative grants all over the country, or actually internationally. To me, I consider them low-hanging fruit because they are unrestricted most of the time. And so I rarely ever go after like corporate kind of, bid type grants and so on. So my question about whether funder fear is similar to Afrophobia, because one of the things that I run into with certain unrestricted business grants is because what I do in my different businesses is very African centered. And I've applied for certain grants multiple times. like during, like different cycles of them, even with city funding. And what I found is that the reviewers oftentimes, and even if they're Black, they don't understand what I'm talking about, or they're actually afraid of what I'm talking about, even if they understand it. And the reason I can say afraid is because I've asked for to see the reviewers' comments, to those grants, or ask for comments. And so either it's that, or because I have a lot of experience in a lot of things and I've done a lot. So I've actually had someone say to me, do you really do all of that? So, I mean, I guess the other one is the phenomenal Black woman syndrome. So how do you navigate? Because if you have a question on the grant that says, what are you most proud of? And I'm paraphrasing. What are you most proud of your achievements in your business? And if I'm talking about those things, they might seem fantastical to someone else. So I don't know, how do you navigate being true to who you are and answering, especially narrative questions, and then getting side-eye because you showed who you really are, told who you really are,
Right.
and what you've done. Mm-hmm.
I think that can be a tough question sometimes because a lot of what the funder response is based on who's reviewing, that application and specifically what they're reviewing for. And there's only so many things that we can identify in the application that we can respond to that they're asking for. And then there's other things that we just know that we may not be, measuring up to in that application. And in that case, it's beyond, our control. We want to see, philanthropy and funders move in a different direction in the way that they're seeing our success as organizations, but it is hard to give a actual practice for how we should navigate this. I think that there are ways that we'll discuss later in the presentation that help to kind of clarify exactly what we do, exactly who we're serving, exactly what the outcomes are. But if you're finding, that you're feeling that you are being, looked over for these opportunities because they're just not ready for what you're presenting, that might be another conversation about your alignment with those specific funders, because there's nothing we can do to kind of twist their arm and get them on board. So it really is a much more nuanced, I think, situation with how we navigate some of these, funders and grant proposals, especially, those of us that do service specific communities. So I think it is definitely a fair call out what you're experiencing and something that a lot of us are. And yeah, I think having clarity is probably the biggest thing that we can own to try to, speak to what they're asking for in some of these grant applications. Now, going into getting organized for grants. Now, again, this is a foundational workshop. So this is before we put pen to paper, what are the different things that we should be thinking about or pulling together to make our writing of this application even easier? And we'll go over how to get organized for writing these grants. And then we're going to end with some AI prompts. So if we're able to answer some of these questions in the beginning, then we can leverage technology to help us get started on some of our answers as well. So follow me as we kind of go through building this data bank or this grant bank of information. With all organizations that we work with, and especially when it comes to writing proposals, writing grants, or even working on your marketing and communications, these areas are areas you should be able to effectively speak to for your organization. And so when looking at getting organized for grants, number one, we should all create at least one document that lives within our organization, a living document. Maybe it's shared with our board and staff, but it answers these questions in one document. So you want to have 1 to 2 paragraphs that really explain who we are. And that means, what is our mission? Why is our heart in this work? Who makes up this organization? A lot of orgs will kind of start to pull in the what we do into the who we are question. And it's very, very important to kind of separate out who you are and what you do. When you're answering who you are, that is more focused on why are you specifically, enabled to do this work? Why is your organization empowered or empowering the community to do this work? What is your why behind the who you are? In addition to that, it's always great to have some files in your GDoc or wherever you hold your documents that speak to these things as well. So we have a who we are doc, and in that, or excuse me, a who we are folder. And in that folder, you want to have documents that clearly state what your mission and vision statement is. You want to have documents that have your staff information, your board demographics, any information on the makeup of your organization and the structure of your organization. Just pulled together in one file. It doesn't need to be organized, but anything that speaks to who your org is, have it pulled together in a file, all of those documents. The same thing goes for what you do. So you always want to have a doc that has all your different programs and a brief write-up of what those programs are, so that you can speak to what you do. If you needed to, send a quick list over to a potential partner, or you have a volunteer that's ready to write a grant for you, you now have something to very quickly provide them that has an outline of all your different programs, who those programs serve and what they do. In terms of methodologies, that's more of the how do you serve. We are a street team where we go out every Saturday and we're serving food to the community. Or we are a capacity organization and we serve 100 orgs a year through this method. But what we do should describe your specific actions, your programs, services. And within your what we do folder, in there, you want things like photos of your team in action. You want, like I said, the description of your different programs. You may want to have some client testimonials or information about clients served in your what we do folder. Ultimately, all of these folders will come together to help you create your best grant applications and responses, but also be able to help you delegate this work to others. Who we serve, this is going to be more data-centric information. This is going to hold the demographics of the community that you serve. This may have some of your numbers, metrics, your outcome numbers, your numbers of community served, if you are tracking any data at that point in time. You'll also have any external data that supports the work that you do. So if you work in health and wellness and the CDC just released, some new data on mental health in Texas, you can utilize that data. So those are all forms and information that also can be housed in this who we serve folder. Why this funder will change from grant to grant, but it's always nice to just have a quick blurb written about why we are in alignment with this specific funder before you start writing your grant. That will help you kind of pull the needle through in all of your grant responses as to why you're in alignment with this funder, why this funder should invest in you, if you have a really strong understanding of why you're even applying to this grant with this funder. I think that is an important point to just sit on for a second, because I know that sometimes money is tight for a lot of us, and we see a lot of these grant opportunities out here that we may be sort of a fit for. And sometimes we'll spend the time to fill out those grant applications only to be, rejected by that funder. But as much as the funder gets to qualify us, we should be qualifying these funders as well. Are they in alignment with, our mission? Are they in alignment with the community that we serve? Whatever, your priorities are in terms of the partners that you work with, it's good to understand.
This too. That's what I did exactly, but it kept.
Oh, so sorry, Erica. Can I mute really quick? Terry, thank you. Oh, every time I move, it moves my side. But it's really good to just have some sort of blurb together about why this specific funder, and then keep that message going throughout your grant application as well. So all together, with all four of these things and all four of these folders that y'all will create in whatever platform you're housing your documentation in now, you will have a complete view of your organization. This can be used for you when you're writing out your grants, or you can now provide all of this information to your board, your volunteers, your newly onboarded grant writers, to now have background that you don't have to verbally provide them. You don't have to run and try to go find things. They are just there. So in addition to effectively being able to write grants, I am also for leaders being able to effectively delegate this to other people as well. This is what we have boards for. This is what we have additional resources for. But if we're able to get all of our things in one clear space, it's the quickest way for us to be able to get some of this additional support, more grant applications written, of course, with revisions, but it's always nice to have at least a jump start on what we need, and supported by somebody else is wonderful. Just want to take a second to look in the chat. Yes, we will provide both the recording and the PowerPoint and information to go ahead and schedule one-to-ones if y'all need them as well. Perfect. So quickly just going high level over data, because this could be its own workshop. There are some really great organizations here locally. Measure, of course. There's Good Measure through Mission Capital, but a lot of organizations that are focused on specifically supporting nonprofits in their data, measurement, metrics, but also communicating out data and data visualization as well. So I will not spend too much time here in terms of strategies for data collection. However, if you need that, please reach out. We're happy to connect you or support you in that strategy. But I did just want to go over the kind of main types of data that we are looking to include in our grant applications, with quantitative and qualitative data. So quantitative, as y'all know, this is more of our hard stats, our hard numbers when it comes to service community, program impact. This is looking at our program metrics. This is your participant numbers, any demographic information, and then of course the numbers and metrics on your output or outcomes from your org or programs. This is the sexy data to funders. This is what they like to see. 85% of 1 out of 5 users did. This is what they like to see in these responses to show kind of hard impact of what you're doing. On the other end, we have qualitative data, which is more of the warm and fuzzies. We like to get these client stories, these testimonials, even from funders. Why did you decide to invest in our organization? Or asking back to your donors, why have they been a sustained donor? Or why has this person continued to volunteer? These are all great pieces of data that can feed in and support the work that you're doing and the different stories that you're telling in your grant applications. With this, a couple different tools for data management and collection. I am a huge fan of G Suite in general, Google Sheets, just for basic kind of tracking and metrics. Canva, of course, is great for data visualization and creating infographics. Data Wrapper, if you have a bit more complex data that you're wanting to put into a graphic form, is really good for that. But there's a lot of different ways to very simply start collecting some data if you don't already have a data management strategy. And we just like to remind everyone, data doesn't have to be super complex and long-winded. You don't need to have taken, data over a year's period. If you had one event and you can say we had 85 people RSV and 80 people came, RSVP and 80 people came, that is a piece of data that you can utilize. No matter how small the data is, we need to be looking at and collecting data. It's the best way that we can show efficacy in the work that we're doing, but also that we can very clearly show need and taking any, objectivity out of it. We also just like to remind organizations, especially if you're starting or are just putting together your data collection strategy, you can use existing data. You can use data that other organizations or institutions have put together to directly support and speak to the work that you're doing. So it doesn't even always have to be our service outcomes or program metrics that we're utilizing to support the work in our grant applications. And I find this extremely helpful, especially when we're applying for grants with a new program, or maybe this is a pilot program that we haven't been able to collect a lot of data on, or maybe if you work in, a service community where it's hard to collect that data directly from your clientele, there's also a lot of facts and stats that we can use that other entities or even larger organizations in your space are collecting. If you are a smaller org, even if you're a larger org and there's another nonprofit that's working in your space, I always highly recommend to reach out to a leader in that organization to see if there's data that they're willing to share. There's power in collaboration, so never feeling shy to reach out, especially when it comes to metrics of the same service community. There's so much more to be done when we're able to help each other, especially when it comes to numbers. Again, as I just go through this, especially because we only have about 20 minutes left, if y'all have any questions at all, please drop them in the chat or feel free to just come off mute and interrupt. Now, just going into reading and really identifying what some of these grant applications and RFPs are asking for. I feel like this is the step before writing that we often miss in really taking the time to read through an application. I'm old school. I will print it out and I will get a highlighter, and then I will go and highlight through what I think that the org is specifically asking for. A lot of the times they can be very long, they can be wordy, they can have a lot of jargon. Sometimes some will say that they are hard to fill out on purpose. But there are ways to really try to clearly understand and speak to exactly what they're asking for by just taking a little bit more time to sit with the application or the RFP before we begin to write. So really understanding and identifying what exactly is being funded and eligibility requirements. We have seen far too many orgs complete a full application just to find out that they're missing one of the eligibility requirements. So really making sure that you've taken the time to go over those and understand if your org is actually able to apply for this specific grant. And then because organizations, funders do sometimes fund for more specific things, whether it's, based off of budget or a specific service community, whether they're looking to fund a new program or an existing program, you really want to make